Oh, we don't see any questions, so I think we're good. Darian, would you like to start us off on the security crat class?
Yeah. Okay. So, secure Crat. Um, Ideally, you run an event and nothing goes wrong. Now, here in the real world, things do go wrong. Some people misbehave, and you have to have a plan for how to deal with that. There's emergencies that come up, people misbehave. Um, some people sneak into events that need to be chased back out. This is where your security team is going to come in. Your security team are emergency personnel. Um, and in the event of an emergency, they're going to be the first responders that you're probably going to run into. It's either them or medics, most likely, because you got more medics and more security than you have crats. So they need to be identifiable. Um, I have been to events that have used shadow police where nobody knew who was part of the security team, so everybody was going to be on their best behavior. I've seen that work some years. I've seen other years where it did not work. Things were vandalized, stolen. And what you have is you have you lose the ability of that emergency first response. If something had happened, someone would have gone running right past one of the security to go find a medic. Meanwhile, someone with the first aid kit was 10 feet away. They would have just kept running. So being identifiable is a huge thing for security. Um, I just had to give that big caveat at the front. Make sure these people are visible. They are very important to your staff. That being said, when you're doing your bid writing, you have to choose how many security you're going to have. This is something you're going to want to sit down and work with your securocrat. Um, if you're having an event of, let's say, a Shire level event, you might have 15 people coming. You probably don't need 10 security crats or security in general. Um, I think you can probably get away with two, maybe three, or just have the entirety of your crat team be part of your security. Um, when you get to bot D, I have seen, and he knows who he is, one person do the entire weekend, um, just about 72 hours straight. Um, Kudos to him. I don't think many of us would be able to do that. So you're going to want at least a good 5 to 10 people because that's a lot of ground to cover, and everyone needs to sleep. So you can't have everyone sleeping at the same time because that's when the trouble's going to happen. So you're going to have to really start zoning in how many people you want to have on staff and how many people you're expecting. I'd say about a 10-to-1 ratio is pretty good. It's a pretty solid balance, maybe a little bit less than that because they're there for the safety of everybody else. If you have an emergency that goes through like a tornado, they need to be able to run through, rattle tents, wake people up, and make sure everyone's off site. Give the autocrat a hand doing a head count, make sure everyone got off the site. If someone gets injured, say at hut base at bot D, there's some pretty rocky, hilly terrain there, and if you only had medics, getting that person out of there is going to be difficult. Your security can often lend a hand, if a stretcher has to be carried or if somebody has to be helped out of the woods. So you're going to want enough people to do that, but not the entire event is security, because then everyone's staff. Um, Check with your park with what supplies they have for your event. If you're talking about an outdoor event that's going to be everyone's outside and then everyone's inside, you're not going to need radios. But for larger events, you're going to want to have things possibly like radios, possibly notepads. If it's an overnight event, you're going to want flashlights. Um, Sort of what I was saying earlier when we were talking about ANS. Um, there's always something that goes sideways. These are the these are the people that are going to handle that. And That might be that somebody went out for night quest and hasn't come back yet. You're going to want to make sure that these people are familiar with the site. They're familiar with. Sorry, the people you choose for security are familiar with the site. They're familiar with the contact information for the site if an emergency comes up. You're not necessarily going to be able to grab your head secure Crat and bring them over and say, okay, so this is my problem. I need you to do this. You're going to get a security person, one staff, and they need to know everything. Or if not, where to find that information. So if they need cards with that information printed up, because you're doing something like Bot D, and you're going to have people in from Toronto. As a prime example for Feast, we were talking about wildlife.
Yeah.
I've grown up around here. I know the wildlife. I know the risks. I know the concerns. I know what to expect. Now, Admiral, you grew up much further south. I don't think I'm not sure if you had bears in that region, because I know in the Toronto Peninsula, there isn't a really high bear population in that area.
Yeah.
So,
Where I grew up, I don't really think like I've never actually had to experience anything. Like I've never seen a real bear in real life before, so I'm gonna say probably not.
they're cute, cuddly, and dangerous.
I mean, knock on wood. I saw a wolf when I went to Bati, so that was nice. On the car drive, it just stood in the middle of the road and kind of looked at each other for a bit, and then it just walked away.
But that's the thing, right? Is that sorry, words are hard. Let me put them in order.
Words are hard.
If you were to be part of my security team, one of the things I'd want to make sure is that you knew the basic, the top 10 things to know about this area. What are the boundaries of the event? What are, what the expectations are for food storage and other things, because you might not be aware of the animal life around here, and I have to be able to communicate that stuff to you. So I know I'm being very nebulous in what do you need to run this, but it changes based on what type of event you're running.
Oh yeah.
Being able to educate your staff is going to be a huge help going forward. And you need to know what your staff is going to need, have a general idea who your staff is going to be, before you can really start saying how much your budget is going to look like. We keep coming back to this dollars and cents thing. And it might sound silly, but you might have to buy notepads. Records. For medics and security, records are super important, because now we're starting to get into the insurance elements of Nine Blades events. If a security guard... I'm going to pull up a really important example here. Well, sorry, it's not really important, but an actual example. Okay. If the security guards at an event were to, say, hog tie someone and throw them on a tent and leave them there overnight.
What?
This happened. It was not at a Nine Blades event. This happened actually at a Kingdom level event in the US. Oh, that is something that someone could sue for. That's something that we would want to have a record and an explanation as to why did you do this. I can't think of any valid reasons to do this off the top of my head, but maybe you did have some. And that's kind of important stuff to have. So, a notepad, write things down. People have been physically assaulted at events, and in the US there is, and I'm going to come to this in a bit, the difference between laws between Canada and the US. There is self-defense laws. And the defense of another is considered self-defense. If you have to go hands-on with somebody, you need to make note of what happened, why it happened. So those notepads, silly as they might be, trivial as they might sound, it's a cost you have to be ready to put forward. Because if you don't get the budget for it, you don't get the money. If you don't get the money, you can't buy the notepads. And then if something happens,
So, side note on that,
Mhm.
not only for yourself or the rest of your security team, but also when an incident does happen, having being able to write down witness names in any witness statements, right? So
Mhm.
that later on, right, if the officers or the BOD needs to be able to contact individuals, being able to know who those individuals are, right? You're gonna go to events where you don't know the names of everyone there, right? All of a sudden you'll be like, it was like a girl that was maybe like five, brown hair. I I don't know their name, right? Or you only know their character
Mhm.
name, or you only know like their first name, and it's like a super
Mhm.
generic name, right? Um, you won't be able to talk with them later if like they're the only witness to a thing that has happened, and you have no way to write down any of that information. Like the case isn't going to go anywhere, and that's going to be a huge issue for a whole mess of reasons, right?
Your phone is a really handy tool too for something like that.
Oh yeah.
You can record audio, you can record video, and you can take photos. Um, not okay. All of these three are not ideal in every circumstance. Some combination will be good. Um, if you're looking at someone's vehicle was damaged, using bot.d as an example, if somebody were to go round to the vehicles and knock in someone's window to get at whatever was in the vehicle, um, when you're told as staff security, it's not a bad idea to pull out your phone, take photos. This is what you came up to. Then you know what was there. If you have to run off to go get your autocrat or the head secure crat, and you come back and more stuff is missing, you can speak to that and you can show that. So documentation is a huge thing in this. It's not just you're there as the thug at the door. Your role is there's a lot more information and nuance to the role. So communication. Do you have a method of contacting each other? Do you have a method of contacting the autocrat, troll, medic? Like I said, when someone goes running because something went wrong, you as security are probably the first person they're going to run into. You need to know if it's a medical issue, who do I contact? How do I get a hold of them? Where are they? Um, so having a map of the area, knowing the layout, these are all important little things. But supplies wise, walkie talkies, maps, notepads, pens, first aid kits, ideally. You are not a first aider, but if it's just a little teeny tiny graze, here's a alcohol swab pad and a band aid. Clean it up and go see a medic in like whenever the battle game's done. You're not acting as the medic, but it is something that it's not a big concern. They will get looked at after.
Tweezers
And
also.
mhm. um, how well your security are equipped is going to depend largely on how big of an area are they covering. So in something like a Wolvenfang mid-range, we have the cafeteria, we have the gym, and we have the back 40 that we normally play at. Grand total, if that was 800 meters, I don't even think it's 800 meters long. I can sprint the whole distance in about under a minute. So if I had to run to go get a first aid kit, our big first aid kit with Troll is no more than 2 minutes away. Um, anyone who has ever been to a bot D, um, you can stop and imagine jogging all the way from Valor's stand down past Eagle's Point through the swamp,
Ooh.
across the bridge, and don't break your ankle when you're running across the log bridges.
Right.
Up the trail, past Rowdy Fire, through the trail to the ditch field, then to Troll, then come all the way back. If somebody is in a bad situation, you need stuff to take care of that now. So, like I said, these are factors to consider. I can't give you hard, fast rules to this. Keep a small med kit if your med kit is more than 2 minutes away. Make sure you have a method of communication. Phones are great. Phones are wonderful. At most of the Fellfrost events I've been to, a phone will work. You have cell service. Bot D, it's spotty. I think at Raven's Knoll it's also spotty. Some areas are better than others. So, excuse me. So it's if you have a radio, you know that will work. So consider what you need and what your park has to give you. Communication, records, first aid, and writing utensils are always handy. Maps are also super handy, knowing where something is. In an emergency, you are not going to be thinking clearly. If you have staff from out of town, maps. Sorry, that's a lot of rambling in the bid writing, but all little incremental things you have to think about.
Super important.
Pre-event. So now that you've figured out everything, you got the bid, you've listed out all the equipment you have, all the equipment you need, and given a ballpark price tag. Take that site walk with your autocrat. This might be a site that you've been to a dozen times, like the Bot D site. Plans change. Evacuation plans might change. Individual or general evacuations. Emergency plans about how you want to do something may change. You may have never been secure Crat before. So take that walk, because I am personally iffy if we could get an ambulance past the ditch field through that trail past the bus. If anyone hasn't been to Bot D, I'm sorry. It's I can get my truck through it. I can get a Ford Ranger through there nice and comfortably, but an ambulance is slightly bigger.
So side note, I've had to go to the hospital from that event because I ended up with heat stroke in the middle of the woods, and somebody had to drive me out to like a gas station nearby because they couldn't make it to the actual site itself. So that ended up being like a whole thing that we hadn't accounted for. So that was kind of nuts. Like, and I was in and out of consciousness, so like the memory's little, but I remember just like being like, we need to meet them. We need to meet them at this location. But the medic team was fantastic, and they accommodated everything. They made sure that they were with me the entire time. They got me to where I needed to go. And they facilitated everything, right? They did all the transportation. They had a full-out plan for getting me, going in and out of consciousness from in the middle of the woods onto the gator, onto like through all the woods and getting me through, right? Like they had a full set-out plan, and they handled it really, really well, right? So, yeah, it's just random things that, you won't be able to account for until that moment hits.
Anyone who's not from Northern Ontario, this might sound like a lot of place names that don't make a lot of sense. Anyone who is from Northern Ontario will recognize it. If you go up 144 from Sudbury to Timmins, you get to about Halfway Lake, and then there's these like orange cones that hang off of the hydro poles beside the road. Fun fact is that those cones are actually for helicopters, because Halfway Lake's emergency evacuation site is there. If you get injured there sufficiently that they need to rush you to a hospital, they're going to take you across the highway, down a dirt road, to a large gravel circle. And that's where the helicopter is going to land and pick you up. That's how the province decided to deal with emergencies. You should have the same style of planning if you're doing a camping event. Evacuation at something like our mid-rain, where there's a little bit of bush, but a lot of vehicle accessible terrain. We're not going to worry so hard about evacuating an injury off of the field. Do we have a question come in?
Yeah, Tyler ended up moving my screen, so I have to look at a different screen for the text now. Just real quick, seeing if there's actual questions to comment.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, water. If you've got to do those treks, right? Having water on you so that you can hydrate for long distance walking through, all the wooded areas and whatnot, and having another bottle in case, the person that you're going to help needs hydration, and right, because then they have to do that same trek that you just did, right? They're also going to need water to be able to deal with all of that, right? So
budget for water insecurity. The same way you do with medics, the same way you do with Beast. Make sure your security people have water. That goes for in winter events too. It might sound a little counterintuitive. You sweat just as much in a winter event, and you lose just as much water walking around in the sun all day in a winter event. Make sure you drink water. Make sure you're handing out water. You can get sunstroke in the middle of winter. Sounds absolutely crazy. It is doable. I've seen it happen.
Yep.
Water. So yeah, when you're doing your site walk, you want to make sure that you familiarize yourself with the layout. What are your emergency plans? If the Admiral were to be injured again, we need to know what our plan is to get her out of the situation and to where an ambulance can pick up. Make sure that your security staff are familiar with the other Crats, who's who, and where they can find people. Generally, Troll is always in the same location, and it's really easy to say, well, go find Troll and talk to them. But it's kind of embarrassing when they run looking for the autocrat, right past the autocrat, all the way to Troll to get the radio to get the autocrat. So a nice meet and greet when you meet with your staff, highly important, highly recommend. It also doesn't hurt to meet up with all of your staff. This is to the autocrats. Meet up with all of your staff and have a bottle of water before the event starts. Introduce yourselves, say hi to each other, shake hands. When you get to something like Bot D, you're expecting a good 20 staff minimum to run that event properly. You may not know everybody. These are probably not people from your park. So, meet, shake hands, get to know each other. You're going to be working closely with these people.
Hold on, let me unmute you. There we go.
Familiarize yourself and your staff with the limits of authority. So, when you're dealing with things like Canadian and American law differences, there are different rights, where I was talking about going hands-on earlier. If you need to restrain somebody or deal with property damage, in the U.S., and I'm going to use the U.S. as a large group here because we border several states as the province of Ontario, and the laws, that's kind of the legal boundary that we're really concerned with here. Going hands-on to protect property changes from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So make sure that you're familiar enough with what your responsibilities are to that property, to the people around you, and be familiar with it. You don't have to be a lawyer, but know what you can do, what you should do, and try to keep to that. Mistakes always happen. In an emergency, they happen. But this is to prevent people from being hogtied and thrown on tents.
Yeah. Also, I guess a side note too is important, like, to make sure that your staff is fully aware of the laws in the area that you're in, right? Because again, right, if you have some security team that are from the States, they're not going to know Canadian law, right? And they might operate by American law just because that's what they know. And all of a sudden, you could be in a serious liability issue because they weren't aware and they took an action that it would be legal in the States but illegal up in Canada, right? Having that communication repeat stuff, right? We just keep on coming back to that, right? But that's super important.
Admiral, you've lived in both countries. I'm sure that you can attest that our laws are very similar, but not identical. Correct.
Even the legal ages of things are different, right? We have a different drinking age in the States versus Canada, right? If you're right? Oh yeah, no. Oh god, there's so many things. There's so many differences, right? It's similar things for some laws, but some things are just very different. Right? In you could end up going the other way, right? Where you have a security team member that's an American, and all of a sudden they see somebody that is under 21 drinking alcohol, right? And all of a sudden they like go into action, but that's not the drinking age down here up here, right? So they could end up like, we're gonna write on, this is a bannable offense, and like we're gonna we're gonna confiscate all of your alcohol, we're gonna do all this stuff where it's just like, up here actually they're legal to drink, right? Like it's like you need to know what the laws are for the regions that you are doing this for.
Fun fact about me, I went to college in Sault Ste. Marie when I was 18, and we would go to Michigan to buy our cigarettes. Because it was 18 in Michigan.
Right.
And we come back, and that was legal because we bought a legal product. We were entirely entitled to come back with it in our possession because we didn't buy it in Canada. There was little loopholes like that we were exploiting. Giving cigarettes to a minor at an event is just as bad as giving booze to a minor at an event. Depending on which side of the border you're on, those numbers all change. In the US, it's 21 to drink, 18 for smoking. In Canada, it's 19 and 19. And
Quebec is 18.
Yeah, Quebec's different too.
I don't think we have any parks over in Quebec at the moment.
I can walk to Quebec from my place.
That is a valid point.
We might end up having somebody.
Quebec,
we might end up having somebody from Quebec coming to an event, and all of a sudden they're like, I am legal to drink, and they're like, not here, right? So making that sort of stuff clear.
Yeah. Now that's another thing, is just because they're allowed to do it back home doesn't mean they're allowed to do it here. So kind of familiarize yourself. If we have someone from the US that comes up that's 18 and smoking, you might have to step in and say something. Then I'm trying to pick my words here. Don't be a bully. First off, recognize that you are acting in the interest of the autocrat, who is acting in the interest of the monarch, who is acting in the interest of the Nine Blades, who is acting in the. You are an officer of this organization, several levels removed, but you are still an officer. And if you choose not to do something about something, recognize that could come back on the organization. Choosing to do something and going over the line also will come back on the organization. So, please give it a page over. I do have a link. If anyone wants it, contact me. I'll happily forward it to you. It's from the Department of Justice in Canada on rules and regulations. It's law differences. More than happy to share that information with you. Okay, so be super familiar in the calm times with what you are doing, because in the busy times, in the emergencies, you're going to be lost if you're not super familiar with things. What is the policy for expelling someone from an event? What is your autocrat decided on that? What's the securocrat decided? Because both of them could be asleep at an overnight event. What are you going to do? If it's tell them, okay, you're gone, you're driving home. That's an acceptable answer. Except if they've been drinking or smoking marijuana. It's legal in Ontario. It's a factor we have to consider and act on now. So what's the decision there? And be familiar with the rules that are set down from the Crat team, and recognize, okay, they might need to sleep it off, which means we might have to give some level of attention to this, telling them, okay, you have to stay in your tent for the rest of the night. When you're sober in the morning, you're going home. If it's an overnight event, they need time to take down their stuff. Yes, what they said might have been offensive. They might have attacked somebody physically, which means we might not want to give them that time to sober
That's a
up
police
or
call.
take down the stuff. Exactly.
That's a police call. Yeah.
When it gets to criminal, you are not a police officer. You are going to need to contact somebody. So recognize what the policy is set down by the Crat team. Evacuations. Ravensknoll and Felfrost had the evacuation at Team Tactics last year. From what I understand, it was expertly done. And that's something we need to think of more. I camp at Ravensknoll outside of Ampguard. I think I've already said that in more than one stream. And they have all of these plans. They're posted in the rabbit hole. It's their sign-in, essentially their troll office. They're posted. It's discussed. They know exactly what it is. Their security force, the Flying Monkeys, phenomenal guys and gals. They do wonderful work. And they have a meeting before their main camping season. Words are really hard tonight. I swear I have not been drinking. Before their camping season kicks off, the monkeys get together and they talk them over and they make sure that everyone is aware what the plan is and what to do about those who are mobility impaired, what to do about those who are. These are all things that you do before the event. You need to know what the policy is for expulsions. What's the policy for a general evacuation? What's the policy for an emergency injury evacuation? What to do about fires. The girls' property, as an example, there's a no fire policy now. We used to have 2 fire pits. We used to have 3 fires going on a pretty regular basis, and they were all right with it for a while. Then people started misbehaving with citronella oil. Making the fire go whoosh made 2 of the 3 fires disappear, and we almost lost the Rowdy fire, sorry.
Jeez.
Security, that's for you to keep an eye on.
In my opinion, there should always be a security officer by any open fire, ever.
Yeah, that's legit.
That's a pretty good one.
And they have to
also
remain sober.
Yeah, geez,
they have to
please
remain sober. If I am at an event as Autocrat and it is 11 p.m., go ahead and give me a hard look. I may not be sober anymore. I may be drinking. I might have ended my shift already. You might have to go find my co-Autocrat, whoever's in charge of troll, whoever it is I've delegated. I'm no longer in charge. So if I'm acting like an idiot, call me out on it. Feel free. Know what the policy is on that. What does your Autocrat have to say about it, and what will they support you with in the morning? If you chuck me off site because I was drinking, I'm going to hope there's a really good reason. But if I'm no longer acting as the Autocrat because I'm done my shift, whatever, my personal rule of thumb is I'm not in a position of authority right now. You as the security staff, outrank me. And if you say, okay, it's time for you to go to bed, I have to go to bed, like anybody else.
I think it's also important to make sure that folks know the schedule of who is working when. Because if like you do have a security staff and all of a sudden, like, if no one has a preset, like, who's in charge of, like, 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., if everyone goes to bed at that time and there's no one on call, there's going to be folks still drinking at the fire, right? Knowing who is responsible for that block of time is going to be super important.
Knowing who you can trust to behave too. Not everyone can trust everyone to behave equally. I'm not saying that to be disparaging to anybody in particular, but there are certain people that will respond better to one security staff and want to behave more for that one security staff than if someone else was on shift. So keep that in mind when you're scheduling your staff. I'm
There
trying
should
to.
never just be one security staff, though.
Mhm.
In my opinion, there should always be a backup. It should never be one person policing an entire event, because that's just not good practice.
Yeah.
Sorry, interjecting.
I
all
was
means.
I was at an event where I didn't know who was on the security staff, and it was early in the morning, and someone gotten very drunk, and like they were not listening to other individuals, but for some reason they were listening to me. So it became like I would have to repeat whatever someone like that had more authority would say for them to actually then stop doing an action, right? And it was just like, I'm not a part of this event. Why is this happening? Right? Again, right? So what you said before, the importance of having clear labels of showing, who is part of the staff, right?
Mhm.
And being able to know who's on call when. Because also, right, if something had gone really wrong, we wouldn't have known who to go to at that point, because we knew like the autocrat had already gone to bed several hours previously. So we're just like, we don't know who to go to. Like, that wasn't clear at that, at the particular event,
You need to know who's in charge, and just like you said, someone was responding better to you than the staff themselves.
But
Try
honestly, you should have never been put in that position. You should never have been put in that position. This is, again, my opinion, so I'm just going to preface that with my opinion. If there's a security staff, they should be handling stuff. You don't let it, your players, that's not their responsibility. That's not their liability. That was not Amy's job to do that. And that somebody should have stepped in the security staff and taken, be like, she's not security staff. You need to stop talking to her. If you're not willing to listen to me, then you need to leave site, because that is putting somebody who has not signed up for that position in that position, and that is not okay. You can't go to a mall and be like, well, I don't like talking to that security guard, but the girl in the pink shirt's cute, so I'll talk to her. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Now, fortunately, like, just to be clear about the situation, like, it wasn't anything super bad or malicious, or, like, it was just, like, someone was being annoying, right? Like, and it was just, like, I would ask them, nicely, just to, it's like, could you not, please? And he's like, okay, for you. I'm like, thank you. Right? It was just, like, but it was just, like, little annoyance things. Like, it wasn't, to be clear, there wasn't any, like, real serious situation. They weren't doing anything illegal. Like, wasn't like a safety thing, right? Just like, it was just I don't want to be in this position right now, but we don't know who to go to, and like,
and that's very, very noble of you to step up. But
it shouldn't be the requirement.
There should always be, again, clearly marked, as we talked in our autocrat talk, clearly marked who is security crat, who can you go to, or staff is clearly marked. So if you don't know who is security, you know who staff is, and you can be like, you need to get somebody from security right now, because this is not my job. So
that actually brings up something I was going to get to in a bit. De-escalation versus enforcement. When we talk about de-escalation, if I were security staff and I was dealing with somebody and they don't want to go to bed and they're not listening to me, if Admiral is able to get them to listen and go to bed, it doesn't mean the discussion is over. If Admiral is willing to talk to them, can talk them into doing it politely, respectfully, and easily and safely, then that is sometimes the better option to pick, in my opinion. You can still deal with this person once they're sober. If they're drunk, if they're stoned, they might need time to wake up and realize they need to behave better. And that's a conversation. It's much easier with a sober person than a drunk person. The alternative to that in enforcement is, okay, you're not listening to staff. Your options are kind of limited at that point. Do you remove them from sight? They're drunk. So you can't toss them in their car and send them home. You can't send them walking home. There are options that you have to consider. De-escalation is usually a better option. It doesn't mean that people get away with their behavior. You still have to call them to account to it later. Calling someone to account for something while they're drunk, that's difficult. If they're sober after they sleep it off, you say, so, we need to have a talk. You're being removed from site for the following reasons. Please pack up your stuff. More likely to have a civil discourse, and then they drive away safely and soberly. So, one of the first things you're going to do as security on an event is mostly de-escalation. You want to avoid people spear tackling others. You want to avoid people's poor behavior. You want to get people to get along. Diffusing a situation means that people can stay friends, hang out, talk, sing songs on a campfire much more readily than just hauling someone away. Talking is a large thing, that is a major part of what you're going to do. And I'm going to come back to this one again, and in the tips portion. When you're doing security, be polite. Most people will respond to that. And if they don't, you haven't lost anything by being polite. So definitely take the time, talk to them nicely. And if someone is willing to help, be very careful how you weigh that help. They are not staff. They are not obligated to help, and they can also make a bigger mess of things than if they weren't there. So, would I trust Admiral if she interjected herself in a situation developing at one of my events? Yes, I would. That's because I know her. If it's someone, just a random person from Fellfrost going, hey, that's my friend, that's adding a random element to a conversation, and I'd have to feel that out and go with my gut, figure things out, and feel my way out. Because I don't want it to get to enforcement. I don't want people thrown off event sites. I want to see people having fun, and I want to see everyone having fun. So there is a point where you do have to remove people. But anyone who has ever been a bouncer is going to tell you it's always better to ask the person to leave politely, because 9 times out of 10, they will come back again with better behavior.
Can I
if you have to
interject?
physically remove them, they're gone. Yeah.
Just as I you might have covered this when I was, right, sorry, somebody randomly, I haven't seen them in months, passed by and I thought to say hi. But in Canada, you cannot lay hands on another person. So physically removing somebody from site is not a possibility in Canada. So automatically, if you need to be physically removed, that means a call to the police and you are possibly being charged. So consider that. You can block. It's not just somebody throwing you off site physically. It's not your buddy taking you up and throwing you off. It's possibly a charge.
You are only allowed to lay hands on in self-defense of yourself or another in an immediate threat scenario.
Yeah, and
that is it. That is
all.
all.
Oh God, hopefully it never ever would get to that, because we have rules against that. You lay hands on anybody, you're gone.
Yep.
That's the COC.
Should and do are two different things, though. It has happened where our security has had to get involved, and hands had to. It did come down to physical contact. So.
Yeah, but again, if physical contact happens, that's something you immediately need to bring to the BOD, because that is a legal liability, and that is possibly a legal charge that is going to be handed down. And it's not just a ban. That's called assault. So
If you have to go hands-on, chances are you have to call the police.
yeah, oh yeah,
So-
100% hands-on. You have to call the police because we can be held liable if you throw somebody out, even if they attacked you first and you don't report it. We can be held liable as a business and NPO. So yeah, immediately call BOD.
Because like especially in a case like that, right? You need to protect the your officers, your the organization, the BOD, and yourself, right? You don't want to put yourself into a situation to where you will go to jail, right? Like, don't put yourself in that situation. Call the police.
So we swing right back around to that long-winded thing I did at the start where I was talking about the stuff that you want to have for all of your security staff. Notepads. You want them to furiously jot down everything that happens anytime they have to get involved in something, because sometimes the smallest details matter. And when you're dealing with legal problems, when you're dealing with assault, in the US there's battery. If you restrain somebody, it's battery, which is a different crime than assault. But in Canada, it all falls under assault somewhere. I forget where. Restraining somebody for an emergency is. Details are important. Why did you restrain somebody? How did you restrain somebody? What led up to the conflict to which you were restraining the person from? All these details are important.
It's called an incident report.
Yep.
I actually have a mock one, and I will happily share it.
Yep, I had to fill out many incident reports in my work. It's whether it's a serious incident report, occurrence report, and all of those. It's the same thing as like if a store had to physically restrain somebody, or a community center or whatever, with the exact same thing. We are an entity, and we are not the police, so therefore not allowed to do those things, and never should, if possible.
The protection of another, to be absolutely clear here, is not to stop someone from calling someone a bad name. It is the threat of physical violence is the only time you're able to get involved, and it is a clear and present danger. So anytime I say lay hands on, this is what I am referring to. Somebody is either actively or is immediately about to start injuring somebody. That's what I mean when I say going hands on. It's not a oh well they called someone I'm still trying to be PG here, so
sorry, I already screwed us up, so you might as well go for it.
They called my friend a shitface. I punched him out and hauled him off site. No. You're the one in trouble now.
It's like, please don't.
So you have to gauge your response. Talking, being polite, de-escalating. That's what you're there for. Finding people that got lost in the middle of a night quest. Oh, by the way, one of the major times you're going to want to staff security if you're doing an overnight event. Night quest. People get lost. And that's when you need manpower. People power, sorry.
You need manpower that people who know the site. Don't have a brand new person. I would be horrible security staff for Bhakti. I can't even do it in the daylight. So
I'm directionally challenged.
We all get lost.
I get lost in that woods so much.
I grew up hunting and fishing. Any camping event, as long as I got stars, I can navigate. Go ahead, call on me to help find somebody. So yeah, choose your staff wisely. Make sure that you have people that know the lay of the land. This is why I said maps. It sounds really silly. Why would you need maps for security for Bot D? That's why.
Because you can mark out on the maps meeting points.
Borders. I can actually get a topographical map and show you where the Bot D site is contained, and as long as every person walking into that site knows, here's the borders. If you go this way, you'll hit a pole line. If you go this way, you'll hit a river. If you go this way, and they find themselves on a river, they now know, turn left, and I will find my way out. But if you don't show them a map, if they aren't aware of where everything is, not much you can do. So, Where were we?
Oh, thanks. I just want one.
I lost where I was. Oh yes. So, before your event, just to summarize, familiarize your people with the layout of your event site, troll, evacuation, everything else. Familiarize them with the equipment they're going to be given. Sounds silly, but if you don't know how to operate the radio, it's just as good as not having one.
Yeah.
The emergency plans. How are you going to expel people from the event? How are you going to evacuate people from the event? How will you treat an individual evacuation versus a general? Meetings you have to have, things you have to think about, conversations you want to have. Talking about the differences between American and Canadian law and your legal rights as security at an event. Going over expected problems too. What type of problems you would expect your security staff to see is important because once again, just like the ANS classes, they might find out, oh, this is what it could come to. Okay, I'm out. I'm not. I don't feel comfortable anymore. In some ways, I say don't necessarily lean on the horror stories, and in other cases, I say pour on the horror stories. Talking about someone being vehicles being broken into, lockboxes being stolen, tents being damaged. If they realize that they have to get involved in these things, that's something that they're going to want to do. Knowing that you might have to ask someone to leave the fire because they keep falling asleep next to it and catching on fire is something that they want to know about, because they might not feel comfortable. The person might be perceived as higher social status. So discuss this with your staff in advance and talk to them about de-escalation. Make sure that they're equipped to talk their way out of situations, to talk their way out of the need to remove people from sites. And I don't mean cheat their way out of it so that they don't have to remove anybody. Always be ready that someone might have to be removed. But mediation, resolving the immediate situation that you can come back and deal with it with sober people. Be clear with your expectations to your staff, and it will pay dividends.
One thing
so event day.
One real quick. Just one thing I would like to add. Try to also prep your staff for having to deal with victims. There is a right and wrong way to communicate with a victim of anything, really, but like some things are real bad, and you got to be careful about trauma and triggering and getting them to feel safe in that moment. There's a certain way that you really need to be able to speak with an individual, and it has to be done delicately. So it's, again, right, some folks may not be prepared for that. They might also not be willing to go into that position knowing that that's a possibility, because it's some pretty heavy stuff. So it's know what you're getting into and know how to handle those types of situations.
Yeah, it's really important. Sometimes in security, you're not dealing with necessarily the individuals immediately involved. Some of the neighboring people are going to have, and by neighboring I mean not even necessarily those who were right up front and saw the incident happen. Significant others, siblings, parents that are going to want to have a say, or are going to want to understand what happened. And emergencies, you have to be ready to talk to people. And some of them are hard conversations. Sorry, I'm just going. There's like a plethora of things that could happen and outcomes, and
I was going
they
to
are
say
difficult
one of the key things that I find that a lot of people are not really comfortable doing, but is really important when de-escalating a situation, is removing the key point from the angry mob. It's literally not having an audience for this entire thing, because that just that's the number one thing. Is like, although you do have to be careful, please do not isolate a victim. Oh my God, that is the worst thing you can do. Ask them what they feel comfortable doing and what they would like to do, because they might not even want to talk to you. And honestly, as a security Crat, might not be your business unless you witness it, right? So
also be careful isolating minors, because the
Oh,
game
never.
ranges from
That's
14.
the thing.
If
That's
their parent is
COC7 now. You can't. You literally can't.
If you find a kid breaking into cars, and you say, hey, knock that off, get them to a well-lit area with people as soon as possible.
So you physically
get
can't
somebody
touch a
over
child?
there.
I'm just saying, that's one of the security things that you should know. Every child or under 18, you should know who their parent is. If they're doing something wrong, you need to not isolate, don't even talk to the kid. You've witnessed it, you need to go find their parent. Because COC7 literally prevents us from isolating anybody doing anything, unless they're like killing somebody or beating somebody or something like that. Then I think you could argue. But that's another thing, is one of the reasons why I say no Crat, security Crat should ever be patrolling alone. Ever.
Yeah.
It should always be two. So, sorry. I'm not a security person. I should close my mouth.
No, you keep pouring it on. I forget details all the time, and I'm kind of rambling, so.
I've never been security Crat because I personally don't feel comfortable. I don't think I would be imposing enough to be able to do what sometimes the security Crats need to do. But yeah, I do know the protocol if need be. And I do know what is allowed and what is not allowed.
I used to work as a bouncer in a bar, and one of the things I learned was that it wasn't always the biggest, strongest person that made a good bouncer. It's people who can talk,
it's not
and
that.
it's having a set of eyes in all locations.
Yeah.
You might not be the strongest, but you're also not supposed to lay hands on people. If they threaten physical violence on you, you are within your right to walk away. Call the police, and have the police come to the event and carry that person off the event.
I'm also anti-confrontation, so it doesn't work well for me.
Okay, that yes. But don't be discouraged about being security because you're not this big burly type that people would see as physically imposing. Knowing that you're security, knowing that you are security and you're present, reassures people. When like the Admiral was saying, when there's an important conversation where you have to talk to someone's parent, significant other, spouse, sibling, you can do that. You don't have to be physically imposing to have that conversation and deal with those difficult conversations. Most of what you're doing is talking people down. Okay, I shouldn't say that because that sounds like we're rooftop and getting someone back from the edge. More from you're trying to de-escalate and bring the situation to a calm resolution without going near physical situations. And if you have someone who's 4 feet tall and you have a player who's being belligerent and threatening violence at 6 feet tall, that's irrelevant because at that point there is a threat to human life. It is now criminal. Cops get called. And that's true whether both parties are 6 feet tall or one's significantly shorter on either end of the spectrum. If the second physical violence is threatened, do not be afraid of this. Also, I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen something in Amp-Guard come to physical violence at an event. It is super rare, and the only reason I'm covering it is because this is how far I have seen it go. And be ready, be aware, and this is kind of what you're signing on. It can get to that point.
I've seen it more times than I'd care to, but it wasn't up here. Like, in the States, I've seen a bunch of incidences. With a lot of times it ends up being drunk individuals that, what'd you say to me? Kind of like, and then all of a sudden they just start yelling, and then somebody throws a thing, right? I have, thankfully, not seen that up here. So it's a thing. It's a thing that can happen.
There's something to be said for mutual combat law, but we're not going to get into that. We're talking about the rules and regulations of our game, not whether they were legally allowed to punch that person. Because I think it's in Washington, mutual combat is still a thing. You can call in the cops to watch a duel.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah. We're not getting into that stuff.
Yeah.
Whether or not they were legally allowed to do something, and whether or not it was allowed at the site, are two different things. And you can have a site that allows for alcohol, allows for marijuana, but the autocrat said no. If the person is caught doing that, they can be asked to leave site, and if they refuse, the police can be called because now it is trespass. The person who has legally rented the site has said, you gotta go. If that person is asleep, let's assume it's bot D and it's overnight, and they've been asked to leave by the security staff, and the autocrat is asleep, as long as the autocrat has it written down, no marijuana use shall happen at the event, anyone caught will be removed from site, then the security staff just has to say, I've already asked them to leave. That's it. Discussion's over. The person who is rightfully in charge of that has asked you to leave. You're now trespassing. The police will remove them.
I was going to say something to take into account for players, because a lot of the times our underage players do not come with their parents. They are brought by family members or other Amp-Guard players and such and such. Please note, if you are taking responsibility for an underage player, and for whatever reason they do something to get kicked off site, you're going with them. So, just so you know. Mm-hmm. If you bring a 16-year-old and they get drunk, they have now forfeit your event because they were your responsibility. So, keep that in mind. Not that I'm saying you should never ever take responsibility for a child or anything, but please keep in mind, you can't just say, oh well, they were a jerk, I no longer take responsibility for them. No. As soon as you bring them onto site and you are signing for them, you are responsible. So.
I would personally put a caveat on it if they knowingly, this 16-year-old was getting drunk. I'd ask them to leave. If the 16-year-old had snuck out, stole someone's alcohol, and got drunk by the bus in the dark, there's a level of...
Kick them off site. That is underage drinking, and honestly, that's... Yeah, no, sorry. If they
the 16-year-old, absolutely.
Yeah. If they willingly, then yes. If it's found that somebody is feeding a child alcohol, man, I'm going to tear that campsite apart to find out who did that. Yeah. So... Yeah. If
the 16-year-old stole the alcohol, the person who signed for them, I don't think I would put them off site because they may have done their due diligence and was passed out.
That's their way home. I'm going to be honest. If that is the ride and they are taking responsibility and I have to kick them off site, yeah, they're going with them.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of it more from a local situation, like here in Adbod D, if someone from Wolvenfang had taken responsibility for the kid misbehaved, they brought the kid home, and then they would still be welcome to come back because they weren't knowing. They didn't know what was happening at the time. They were passed out in a tent sleeping. So
I mean, honestly,
I think there's some discussion
for an underage player. Unfortunately, I feel that kind of forfeits your right to become inebriated because you have somebody that you're being responsible for, right? And that parent is trusting you to watch that child at this event, you're taking responsibility. So I would hold you accountable, and unfortunately, I would remove you from site. So
Fair point. I should have said was asleep in a tent, not passed out. If somebody was,
okay.
if they were sober in the tent when you go to wake them, and you're like, so we caught little Timmy drunk by the bus.
Yeah.
Well, he should be in his tent.
That's the thing is like that puts us under liability as an organization because we allowed underage drinking. Yeah, it's just that's a whole bag of worms. Please, if you are vouching for an underage person, keep an eye on them. Be sure you know who you're keeping an eye on, because I would personally hold you accountable. So, I don't know if everybody's the same way.
Know what you're signing up for, right? Like, if you are taking responsibility for somebody, know the risk, right? Understand the liability that's involved with that. Don't put yourself in a situation that you are not comfortable with, right? Yeah, I just be careful.
I don't know.
Make good choices.
That parent is trusting you, right? That parent is trusting you to keep that child safe. I say child, like, I mean, I have a child. Okay, so my child is 17. He cannot drink. If he went to an AmpGuard event and I let him go with, say, Ryan, and he ended up getting drunk, you're darn right I'm going to hold Ryan responsible.
What's the drinking age in Quebec?
Isn't
it 18?
18?
It's 18. He's 17. Therefore not,
Less
I'm
than 12
calling
months.
it kettle black because I'm sure I did it when I was a child. But even then, like AmpGuard related, when it comes to liability, we cannot falter on these types of things, especially with the new COC7.
Yes.
Don't get mad at us. Just do your job. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Question is coming.
But also when...
We have a question!
Yay!
Question. Child is 18. Are you still responsible for the child?
Are we
no,
in
you
Quebec,
are not, because the waiver actually says... Sorry?
Are we in Quebec, or are we in...
Ontario?
Ontario.
Ontario.
They are legally an adult. Yeah, the waiver says 18.
That's right. Okay, Ontario. So, no, Carl, you, if you brought them to site, you would be responsible for taking them home, or you would be responsible for calling their parents. But, or you could also, if you say, I'm not dealing with this, because technically 18, they're not a child. But
they're legally an adult, I think, at 18.
Yeah, so then you wouldn't have to, that child is not your responsibility. That is an adult. They are underage drinking, so at that point, that would be security or the autocrat, and they would still be removed from site, but at that point, they would be removed from site by calling their parents.
Now, there is that. Oh, yeah. The other thing is that you as an autocrat and securecrat, I guess, would have to decide how you want to handle that, because if the 18-year-old in the group got caught drinking and is being thrown off site Friday night of Bot D, and everyone came from Ottawa, it's now on that group to decide whether they're going back or what they're doing.
Yep.
Because the other 3 out of 4 people in that car might decide, sorry, Chief, go get yourself a hotel room.
Oh,
We're
sorry,
not interested in leaving. You're an adult on your own.
I was basing that on a local thing. That's interesting. Yeah. That is an interesting point.
They are. Yeah. The 3 people in the car are not legally obligated to take that person home.
No.
But they have to make their decisions separately. So they aren't.
Honestly, at that point, that person is an adult at 18.
Yep.
So yeah, they would have to pretty much beg and plead for their friends to take them home, or they'd have to find somewhere to stay for 3 days.
Yep.
Yeah.
Make good
3
choices.
days you can camp on Crown Land. 3 days they can camp on Crown Land. That's legally allowable.
That's literally, this is us saying as autocrats, don't be a dick and drink 18 at an event, because you're screwing yourself.
And giving us lots of headaches and paperwork.
unless you're yeah.
Hey,
It's
good
also a
life
possibility
choices.
if you're underage drinking. If you're underage drinking, it is a possibility that we call the police.
Yep.
And you spend your 3 days in jail. So,
Also,
I mean,
like, that's a bannable offense as well. Like, don't risk your ability to play this game ever again on a real dumb moment at an event. Like, don't risk you know, your happiness and your hobby, and also, right, again, when it's legal stuff on top of that, don't throw away your life like that. Like, for what?
Yeah.
For what, right? Understand what you're doing, understand the repercussions of every action that you do, and make good life choices.
There'll be another Bot D, there'll be another Felfrost Coro, there'll be another event where you can sit around the fire and drink with them when you're of legal age.
Yep.
Yep.
Don't throw it all away because you have to have it now. These are, I think, underage drinking is probably the worst. It's the worst scenario when you have to split up a group of people in that case, because you either have to ask 4 people to leave because one person misbehaved, and that leads to a lot of hurt feelings in that car and in the greater whole. Because I can think of more than once that it's happened where people were attending something in the US and somebody misbehaved and they were asked to leave.
Yep.
And the whole car gets, right, the whole car gets screwed over for that too.
Yeah. They were given some leniency, and that's when somebody got hogtied and thrown on a tent. When leniency got expended. We'll talk about that story another time.
Sure.
After stream, we'll talk about that. No. So, did anyone else have anything pre-event?
No.
That was only pre? Wow.
That was only pre.
Hydrate. Remember to hydrate.
No, that's event day. Well, I guess you should probably drink water on the way up to event day, or you won't make it there. Okay. So, event day, record keeping. We've mentioned this a few times. Record keep. Notes. Pull out that notepad, write it down. Somebody stole a lockbox, they broke in to get something, they cut open a tent, whatever. Take photos. You got a phone? Take photos. You got a camera? Take photos. Because if you, like I said before, if you have to abandon that site to go and get somebody else, or you had to get involved in something, or even if you had a partner walking with you as security, you are now left alone with a vehicle that's open. If you have photos of it when you got there, no one can say that you reached in and stole something later. Nobody can come back at you. Records. It's one of the most important things. And this goes to asking someone to leave. Well, we found Timmy, who's 18 years old, by the bus, getting drunk on booze that he stole. Well, giving booze to a minor is also a crime. So saying that he stole it is an important detail that might come up with the board, with the board of directors of the Nine Blades, 6 months down the line. And you as the security staff, would you remember that detail? Do you remember whose it was stolen from? Do you remember whose it was? Do you remember where? These are all things that you have to think about and you have to consider. Records help you remember when it matters later. It can take up to a year for something to get to court in Canada. Actually, it can take over a year. So, I know that I have trouble remembering what I had for breakfast this morning. Asking me what I had for breakfast this morning last year.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing. Understand the limitations of your memory, right? You're not gonna remember the little things. Absolutely not. You can't remember what you ate today, last week, right? What did you eat last Friday? What? You're not gonna be able to recall something like that. So yeah, the little things.
I was right here on this stream.
That's true.
I know exactly what I was doing last Friday.
That's true. I said, what did you eat? What did you eat last Friday?
At this point, we were done the stream. Last.
McDonald's.
Yeah.
Last.
Sure.
Oh.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll hurry up. I get the hint.
No,
Right,
not at all.
communi-
I took an hour.
I think I took more than that.
Communication.
Amy took an hour.
Yeah. And we also started, right, we pushed the start time back as well, so we started at 6:30.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
All good. So communication, that word we keep harping on.
Repeat stuff.
Have team meetings every day. What happened last night? What happened yesterday morning? What's expected for the day? Talk about it. Have a cup of coffee with each of the people at shift change. It sounds really corny, and it sounds like something, real security guards do on real job sites. It's because it actually works.
Yeah, that's fair.
Professionals do what works. Strange thing, right? Check the number of players you got at your event on the event day. Make sure that you know how many people are there, because once again, going back to the ratio, maybe another event happened and you've lost half the population of your event. You can look at half your staff and say, go play. We don't need you. Nobody's showing up. Everybody canceled on us, so thanks for coming out. Enjoy the event. Maybe you need to start soliciting more staff, because instead of getting half the people you expected, you got twice as many. If I was running a bot D, I would expect 125. If I got 175 people, now my numbers just about became 50% larger, so I need a security staff and a medic staff 50% larger. Emergency contact info for the players. While talking about them, this is for anyone who's below the age of 18. Where is your mother? Where is your father? Where is your guardian?
Should be on your waiver.
Who are they? Another good question. And where is their tent? Where are you guys tenting?
Yep.
Because if you find one, you have to find the other. Contact info for the site. If you have to call on first responders for any reason, ambulance, fire, police, ejections, evacuations, and extinction.
Extraction?
I was gonna say extinguishing, but yeah, putting something out.
Oh.
You need to know what is right now on this stream. Who knows the address to the bot D site?
Oh, shit. No, it's in my Google.
Hard no.
I know it because
I know it's in
I've
one
been
of
out
the
there 100
10.
times.
Red Creek Road? Is it on Red Creek Road?
So what you're looking at is you need to know, and every one of your security staff needs to know this. Because once again, it might not be the secure crat that somebody finds in an emergency. Hey, I don't know, the bus is on fire. That security staff now needs to grab a phone, call 911, and be able to tell them exactly where the fire is and what's being done to contain it. And this goes back to your emergency planning. Make sure they know this.
Yeah, if you don't know the address,
This is
you
all-
can't tell, right, the emergency first responders where to go.
Yeah. In Northern Ontario, saying, there's a fire. Where is it? It's in the bush. Is not good. It only gets worse because they might not send a fire truck if you just say in the bush. They might send a water bomber, and I'm not sure if anyone else has seen what the damage those things can cause, but it'll flatten that bus.
Firefighter.
Anyone near it.
Yeah.
Oh, I
This-
cleared my cache. Darn it.
Okay.
I cleared my cache on my maps. I was trying to find it.
It's on my GPS.
Okay.
Like, I have like
What's
a
that
old like
blinking?
Garner thing. It's definitely on my GPS. I just don't have it on me. But also, I've never
okay.
had to be in that position at Badi before.
True. Also me, yes.
Yep.
Okay. Make sure that all of your staff, your security staff, know who the first aid staff are, or first aid certified players. Now, I'm going to be very clear on this difference. being a certified hospital staff and first responder, first aider or paramedic are two very different things. If you actually break your leg in Canada, right out in front of a hospital, right in Ontario where we have OHIP and everything else, you break your leg, you're 2 feet out of the ER doors, the nurses will wait for the paramedics to carry you in. They are not equipped to deal with you outside. They're not insured. It's not their bailiwick. When you are dealing with first response to an injury in the woods, you are dealing in suboptimal conditions. Even the smallest little thing is a suboptimal condition, because there's a lot more factors you have to consider. There's more danger factors you have to consider. Getting people out of there is also a factor you have to consider. Sometimes you have to weigh the risk of riding out someone's illness versus extracting them. If carrying somebody out of a mountainous terrain versus letting them take a day or two to get over the flu on a hike, you might choose to just give them the day or two, because carrying them out could be a more dangerous exercise. First aiders, less so than paramedics, are trained to make those calls, are trained to observe the area around the person. Just because someone's medically qualified does not mean they're the best set. Also, doesn't matter what your credentials are. If the Medicrat makes a decision, they are the person charged by the board indirectly through those layers. They have final say. If someone is a nurse and decides to move somebody that the Medicrat has said no, that nurse can be removed from site automatically. It's non-negotiable. They can make the case later that they had the right to do what they did, and they can sell that to the board in a discussion later. But security staff and medic staff, you're going to work hand in hand together. And some of it might overlap. But those medics know who they are, and they have the final say. It's the delegation of authority. They are given the authority over medical matters. If you disagree with a general medic, go see the Medicrat. If the Medicrat supports their decision, as long as it's not putting the person in clear and immediate danger, it's not your call.
Oh, one thing just to note on that too, just because we were talking about like de-escalation stuff previously and things like that, right? You might, as a security team member, right? You may not have any medical knowledge whatsoever. You're waiting for, or you're getting communication with medical staff. They're getting there, but you're with somebody that is in pain, is sick, is freaking out, right? Keeping them calm, talking with them, right? Keeping them alert and conscious and talking to you, right? You might be the first person there, right? You might be that first contact. You might be that first responder in that sense, right? Being able to keep them calm will keep them safe, right? Because if they start panicking and all of a sudden their heart rate's going up, their breathing's increasing, getting too rapid, right? They might try to get up and walk away or run or do something where, like, if they've broken their leg or something, right? And they freak out and go, I need to get out of here. And all of a sudden they're just trying to, like, run out of the woods on their leg, right? Like, you gotta talk them down, right? Like, you gotta, I don't want to use that phrase. You have to just, like, talk with them, keep them calm, cool, and collective. Adrenaline is gonna be pumping for both of you, right? It's, it's just calm, relaxed, try to keep a level head, try to keep them a level head, keep them distracted even, right? Just start asking them random questions, right? What was your favorite game today? What is, other than today, like, what is your favorite class to play in this game, right? Just random chit-chat, just to keep them talking, keep them distracted, right? So when somebody is in pain and especially for those that aren't used to being in pain, they will panic. And if you can keep their mind, like, for those that have dealt with a lot of first responders, it is like the go-to thing. They will just start asking you questions. They'll just start arbitrary things. What's your favorite movie? Why? Right? Like, they'll just start talking with you just to keep you distracted, right? So that's just, like, one of those kind of de-escalation sort of tactic things. Is just, how's the weather type of conversations, right? Just have them talking. Just keep them distracted.
Keep yourself calm, too. And if you have to choose between the two, keep yourself calm first. Self-care, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of someone else.
Correct.
Two very important sides of the same coin. You need to stay calm. If you see someone run up to you going, "Oh God, you're bleeding! Ah!" What's the first thing you're going to do? Panic. Panic? Heart pumps faster. Heart pumps faster, there's more blood flowing through the hole in their leg. That's more blood flowing out of the body. Hyperventilating. There's this really paradoxical thing with hyperventilation. For some reason, it decreases the oxygen amount in the blood and can cause you to pass out. If you don't have enough blood, or your blood level's dropping, you're going to pass out a lot sooner. Panicky people look at a stick jammed in their leg, and the first thing they want to do is get it out. That is often one of the worst things, because if you pull that out, you could leave splinters. And anyone who's ever actually gotten a sliver from wood, you know how it bubbles up on the fingertip and just kind of comes out? That can do that deep inside your leg, and that's where it becomes septic.
You never ever remove anything. Oh my God, I'm not teaching a first aid class. As a side note, anything, any impalation, any impaled, please do not remove anything. Oh my God, if you are not first aid trained, do not administer first aid. All you're doing is keeping them calm. And then as soon as that person who is first aid trained gets on scene, you need to back off, because they are now in control. And oh my God, sorry, you just like triggered something with me. I'm just like,
give them space.
Remove anything.
God, okay, one more thing, because this is like, oh, so sorry. Right, the medic has now arrived. Make sure that they have space. Keep, like, the rubberneckers away, right? Oh, what's happening over here? Oh, are you okay? Can I help? Right? We have this situated, please. They need some space, some privacy, please. Go play the game. Go over there. We're good. Thank you. We'll let you know if we need anything. Please, we need some space. We need some privacy, right? Like, just... Because also...
Caveat to that.
Yes.
I'm going to say, referring back to actually your video specifically, if the injured person is specifically asking for a specific person, there is a reason. Find that person.
Yes.
If that person is trying to get in there, that is the one person you let through.
Yes.
Always
110%.
Your victim has a right. Victim. Oh my God. Your patient.
Your victim.
Oh my God. The person who is injured.
Oof.
After you're done injuring this person.
Yes. The person who is. This will calm them down. This is part of your job of calming them down. You know what I mean? Sorry. Wow.
Again, right,
it's all
and
part
this
of
is
de-escalation.
Yeah, this is something I covered in the facing medical adversity in Amgard video, which by the way is a shameless plug. Watch the other video that I've done. Those that have pre-existing conditions will have someone on site that is completely aware of everything. Right? They will have what is essentially going to be like a caretaker, right? They're going to know what helps them most in situations. They will know where their meds are located. They will know emergency contacts. They will know where their med list is. They will know coping mechanisms, how to talk with them, what they're comfortable with, right? Oh gosh, there's a lot. There's a lot, but there's usually one person that's like the person. So, like, make sure you find them. Make sure that you allow them to come to be there for the person. Listen is an important thing. Is listen, because there are a lot of individuals with pre-existing conditions, and don't panic because likely they're not. So you certainly have no reason to, right? There's a lot of things where people they deal with this stuff on the daily kind of thing. And, like, having to keep everyone else around you calm, like when you're having a thing, takes so much out of you. And then having to deal with a growing crowd on top of that, right? You're in a situation where you can stop that. You can stop the growing crowd and the badgering of 10 people coming and asking the same question and insisting on helping and starting to act, right? Going through your things, trying to pick you up, trying to do things, right? Move your things, just can make everything so much worse, right? Make sure that they're comfortable, make sure that they have the privacy that they need in that moment, and like they will know what they need, right? So listen, make sure you just like don't escalate a situation and have a I can't like stress this enough, a growing crowd on somebody dealing with a medical emergency or even just a regular daily medical inconvenience thing, just makes everything a million times worse and makes the person extraordinarily uncomfortable. Just so bad. So you're in a position that you can help with that. So that.
Here's the other thing: is if they're asking for someone specific, they might know that that person has an EpiPen, or that person might know their allergy list and be more equipped to deal with it.
Yeah.
Unlike Feast, you don't have a central list of everybody's environmental allergies. And they could be in a situation where they need something and the other person is best equipped to do that. This doesn't mean abandon the person if possible. Keep present with them. The other thing, for medics and security, I highly recommend getting a kitchen tent with not only the bug mesh, the actual curtain wall around it, because you can take that and you can put the entrance towards the bush and you can hang that. You get people away from crowds. People don't see someone who's injured, they don't crowd around someone who's injured. They don't see someone who's having a difficult conversation with people because either there was misbehavior or something happened. Either they misbehaved or misbehavior happened to them. And they're having a very private conversation with the staff, relaying a story or something. They don't see people there, they don't gather there, they don't eavesdrop. Kitchen tents. They're amazingly useful. They make great headquarters for staff to store stuff in, and it makes a nice central location that you can store walkie-talkies, charging stations, first aid kits, bottles of water, cots, stretchers,
water.
crutches. All of these things, I highly recommend them. I cannot recommend them enough. Logistically speaking, golden. I suggest every park invest in one. Because you never know. You just need something sometime, and it might be empty 90% of your event. But for that 10%, it is as good as gold. And it gives people their peace of mind.
Good stuff.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your point.
No. This is a team event.
Alright. So, make sure that you take the time with your staff. Now, just going back to my list here. Take the time with your staff, specifically between troll and security. Have the ability to identify players who snuck in. Have the ability to identify players who are above the age of 19, and have the ability to mark players who are above the age of 25. If you are allowing alcohol at your event and marijuana, respectively. Because we need to know that now. And make sure that it's not transferable between people. We have had players who have shown up, signed in, gotten the bracelet, and then took the bracelet off, gave it to their buddy, and then went back and, I lost my bracelet, here's my ID, see, I'm signed in, I'm paid, got another bracelet. Well, they were 19, their buddy was 18. Now their buddy has a bracelet that says he's allowed to drink, and he's on site. And he's paid, and that's a problem. Make sure that your security staff and your troll staff can work together and they have an agreed upon system to make sure that kind of behavior doesn't happen. Most wristbands have the tearaway stuff now that prevents it from being transferred, but I know Raven's Knoll has rubber wristbands that you could easily hand to somebody.
Yeah.
So they have different logistical concerns than us. That works for them. Make sure whatever event you're running, you cover that base. Otherwise, people will sneak in. They won't pay, and it's a major problem. It's going to affect the budget of the event and whether or not you get to do the event again in the future.
It's a huge
I don't mean to bring
liability,
it. Yes, especially when they're 18 and drinking or smoking pot at your event.
Yes.
Because now we can be held liable. Already covered that. You covered identifying the players with specific life-threatening conditions. If people are asking for a specific person in an emergency, get that person. If they have a mobility issue, if they have a debilitative issue, or a life-endangering issue, most common one that comes to mind is allergy to bees. If someone's allergic to bees, try to keep in mind who that is, and if any of your security has an EpiPen that can be used on that person, try to keep that in mind when events are happening. If I know one of my security staff has one that's readily accessible, I'm going to keep that person in mind when I'm on the walkie-talkie going, somebody got stung by a bee and I need an EpiPen. Bill, where are you? I need you to run that out to Eagles Point. Because now I know exactly where an EpiPen is at all times.
Asthma also is like that as well.
Sorry?
Asthma is also like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Most individuals with asthma have like the same inhaler, right? And it's usually the same prescription across the board, right?
Ventolin is actually super easy to get. You don't need a prescription for Ventolin. Anybody can get it. It's in my first aid kit. I am not asthmatic, and you cannot overdose on Ventolin. Fun fact.
As someone who has been asthmatic in the past, there are 3 different asthma meds.
The blue one
of
specifically
them has
Ventolin.
The blue one.
the blue one
might not work. Yeah, if they take salbutamol and not Ventolin, Ventolin might work. If they take Ventolin and not salbutamol, salbutamol might work. Anything is better than nothing because it will not hurt them in that case.
Yes.
But try to make sure that your medics are aware.
Yes,
if
100%
you administer a treatment like that.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I was going to say, yes, always. That's something you always document kind of thing. So.
Document. You are a recording machine as a security staff. Okay. Mobility concerns, asthma, and things like that. Asthma, if you are in the situation of a forest fire evacuation, smoke can get heavy. It can become a life-threatening condition. And U.S. security, you are going to want to make sure that people get out of the situation to the best of your ability without endangering yourself. Knowing who might be mobility impaired or impaired by a certain set of circumstances helps you do that. Identifying players who have life-threatening conditions, and you can't force people to tell you. Saying that I had asthma, you don't know if I have it right now, and you're not allowed to ask, or you're not allowed to push. But if you say, well, does anyone have something that they'd like to declare medically speaking to our staff, we will share that with our security. That's optional. I can still choose to say no. But then when the forest fire comes and I pass out in the smoke, that's on me.
If you have a medical condition, remember the importance of advocating for yourself, right? Having that conversation with the Crat, and if needed for the security Crat, depending on the situation, it can be a very uncomfortable thing talking about that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, you're gonna want to have you're gonna rather have an uncomfortable conversation than a life-threatening situation, right? If it's the difference between I don't like people to know that I have asthma and, hey, I'm having an asthma attack in the middle of the woods and I need help and I can't communicate right now because I'm having an asthma attack. Tell someone you have asthma, right? Tell them where your inhaler is. Have your inhaler on you, right? It's an uncomfortable thing, but it is better that you advocate for yourself because your safety is paramount.
Embarrassment or death? Circle 1.
Make good life choices.
Sorry, I have a dark sense of humor. Okay. So that is pretty much the event itself. You're going to de-escalate, you're going to keep people company, you're going to keep people safe, you're going to keep people enjoying themselves. And sometimes that is telling some people, all right, I think you've had enough of the fire, maybe we should take it back to your tent. You've caught on fire twice now. We should probably go.
Twice? Leave me at that day.
You know, maybe asking people
You're
to go
actively
back
on
to their tents.
fire. Maybe.
Well, take the second to put yourself out, of course. But, be pleasant, be polite. You are the authority in that situation. Remember that. And when you ask someone to leave site, you have the final say. To the autocrat, make sure you have the conversation with your security crat and that you are both comfortable delegating this power to somebody, especially after dark at a camping event. Don't have security staff you can't trust with that authority, because you have to empower them with this, otherwise
you got to stay up the entire time.
And I like relaxing around a fire, so I like delegating authority sometimes. The best advice I can give you is trust your gut. If you think something's not right, go take it and go check it out. Don't be afraid to politely ask questions and investigate something that's going on. If you see a bunch of people hanging out in the parking lot near cars, poke your nose in, say hi, ask them what they're doing. And if they're just out having a smoke, they know that you've seen their faces and you know what their faces look like. If they were there to break into a car, they know they're caught now. That might be the difference between somebody having a great weekend, going home and having a great story about your event, or waking up the next morning going, well, there went my car stereo, there went, the $100 I had in the glove box, there went all of this important stuff.
Note to self: Darian keeps $100 in his glove box. It's getting late. I'm sorry.
It's also
that was the
Ford,
takeaway.
so you don't even have to break in. You can probably just rattle the handle and it'll open. So just don't smash my window then. Don't jump the gun. Last tip: don't jump the gun. Always trust that being polite is the right course. If you suspect something's going to happen, you can keep an eye on it, but don't immediately assume. Don't go after that person as if they've already done something. If you think a miner's going to try to drink, you can warn them, but don't haul them off to their tent until they manage to get their hands on a bottle or something. Because maybe they're just rebellious and don't like authority, but they are entirely following the rules. Don't ruin their weekend either. That's the best tips that I can give. Other than that, there's a list of rules you need to make sure that you're in compliance with. Once again, I have a link if anyone wants it. Did anyone have anything to add during the event? Sorry?
I would like that link.
Absolutely. So, post-event, actually, you already have the link. I forwarded you the PDF of this.
Oh, it's on there.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's the www.justice one.
Got it.
Justice.gc.ca. To everyone else, I will happily send you the rest of that link. It's a lot longer. All right, so did anyone else have anything for the day of the event?
I was going to add, you should know order of operations. Sorry, not order of operations, but like...
Chain of command?
Chain of command, thank you. That is exactly it. because in the end, you as the security Crat head person are going to have to know everything. So unfortunately, if you do fall asleep and you've delegated somebody and something happens, chances are you're still gonna get woken up. So, yeah.
Because, like I said, I might be hanging out of the fire, but at that point, I'm no longer autocrat. I am an attendee. Maybe my trollocrat is my co-autocrat. They're now in charge. You got to go find them.
So
Know the chain of
gotta
command
know
and who
that.
to talk to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Communication. Repeat stuff.
Repeat.
That's that team meeting.
Repeat
Communicate,
stuff.
communicate. Speaking of, post-event, my first note, have a group debrief. So another meeting, communicate again.
Yep.
When you meet with your staff after an event, this can be as simple as, hey, so how did it go? Or as a formal sit down and talk. When you're doing that, see how everyone felt it went. See how everyone feels afterwards. Because you may have had stressful situations during the event, and you might still be carrying that stress. How you deal with that stress is super important going forward. If you carry that stress with you, you might burn out and not play Amp Guard anymore. If you don't deal with it in a healthy way. Dealing with it in a healthy way might make you even more resilient and more comfortable to come back and do it again in the future and help foster the next generation of secure Crat. But talk about it. Don't be embarrassed to talk about feelings. Discuss incidents and how they were dealt with, because not only have you recorded what you did, having U.S. security staff talking to secure Crat, you're going to get their experience trickle down, or from the other security staff, talk about what you may have done right, what you did wrong, what they never even thought of that actually worked. It's a learning opportunity for all of you in that meeting. If you did something wrong, own up to it. And this is something I can say for autocrats and everywhere else. Own up to it. You're not going to get away from it. But if you own up to it and say, yeah, I probably could have handled that better, I'm sorry, I will try to do better in the future, leaves me with more faith as a Crat that you actually mean those words than somebody who goes, oh, I have no idea what you're talking about, and try to dodge it. At least if you had own up to it, then I know I've had the conversation, and just like asking the silly question, I know you know the right answer now. It's all that learning opportunity. Collect any loaned equipment and records. Specifically, Secure Crat should collect all the loaned equipment and records. They should debrief with the autocrat right afterwards. Once again, you go over the incidents that happened and how they were resolved. Then the Secure Crat should hand over to the autocrat the equipment and records. And that's mostly where it ends. If something happened at the event, you may be called upon later to speak or identify who the security officer, the security staff was that dealt with the problem, or if something that wasn't reported at the event came up, if you saw anything, or if any of your staff saw anything, or anything like that. So keep a copy of the notes if you can. If not, hand them over to the autocrat, and the autocrat can hold on to them. But make sure you know who your staff was, and make sure that they are happy and feel good about what happened. And that's pretty much it. That's the good part. It's over. Unless either of you two had anything that you want to add to that debrief post-event.
No, the Gremlins. The Gremlins have taken Lisa once more. Yeah, I'd say like the
just done with this.
just we're not cool. You know, I the only thing I would add is like, especially if folks might end up witnessing things that are very uncomfortable, and giving them time to vent and get out that because it can be traumatic for a witness, and for the person that had to be keeping it together in that moment.
Yeah.
They might need a moment to just not keep it together, just to be able to vent out that emotion and that feeling. Because, I think right now, look at what's happening in the world. What nurses and doctors are facing right now. It's heavy. It's very heavy. And if you're on the team that has to witness something heavy, that's a hard thing to deal with. So just making sure that they're okay, that's a good time when you're having that debriefing. Just make sure they're okay.
Yeah. Story time with Darian. This is outside of Amp Guard, but when I was working with the Cadet Corps, I was actually in cadets. How long ago this was? This was in the 90s. Somebody fell off a cliff, a friend of mine, when we were on a field exercise, and they brought him in. I was one of the responders that had to go out and get him. When I say brought him in, they brought him to the road where we had to go fetch him. And he was not in good shape. He had twigs poking out of him. And he had several bruises and broken ribs, and that was something that we had to sit down and talk about afterwards. It was no one's fault. He stepped on a loose rock, and he went for a ride. But it's something that you have to decompress over. Having been a responder to that as a first aider, dealing with someone that you know that's been injured is stressful. And I went through that, and through the debrief that we had and the conversation and the support that we had, I came out the other side more ready and able to deal with those things. And in the world we're in today, first responders, it's a rough job. Where I said first responders, and I meant police, ambulance, fire. As security and medics in AmpGuard, you are first responders. You're probably going to be first on site if somebody falls off a hillside, if somebody breaks a leg, if somebody trips over a fence or falls into a swamp. You're the one who's going to be first on scene and have to deal with that. And I still remember what Jesse looked like when he had fallen off that cliff. I'm not traumatized by it. It's not something that sticks with me and it's like, comes back. But it's something to remind me that there are some things that happen in this world that really, really suck. Be ready that you might have to be called upon to take care of something like that, but also recognize that we are here for you. I have been through similar situations. If you ever have been in that situation in AmpGuard and it sticks with you really bad and you want to talk about it, I'm more than happy to talk with you about how it sits with you. We can't be burly and emotionally distant at all times. Things do get to us even when we try to pretend it doesn't. You may never forget something, but how you deal with that changes you as a person to make you either stronger or realize your limitations. And that I think is a hugely important point. So Admiral, I absolutely agree with you that in the world today, it's all in your outlook and how you face something, and it's chaos.
Yeah. And having that support mechanism there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that again, right? It's a team. You're there for each other as well. Just never forget about the importance of communication and just the emotional support of being a teammate. It can really make a difference. Good stuff. Go team. Yeah, again, so we're wrapping things up. If you have any questions, again, please tag me, either in our Twitch chat here. Again, remember that there is a 20-second delay, or you can message us on our Nine Blades Discord for the featured park text channel. Again, please just tag me for there as well. At least there, you don't have the 20-second delay. Again, once more, the 20-second delay dance. And always the jazz hands for Rajavia, always. But yeah, other than that, thank you so very much to my guests, to Countess Faywellen and to Dark Lord Darien. It is amazing having y'all as teammates for these things. I'm supremely honored to have you here and to have your just breadth and wealth of knowledge to be a part of this. I really, really appreciate you and taking the time to so much time. Just the prep for these and the tests, the tech tests, and having to sit through these for now. We've done 8 hours, I think. Got more and more.
Next week we have to go to midnight because we hit 11 this time. So
gotta keep breaking records, man.
They're not gonna trust us anymore. They're gonna come the first 5 minutes and just be like, "Hey, sup," and then watch us later. We're a podcast now, basically.
Apparently.
I'm alright with a podcast. Hey, we can do this on a weekly basis.
Crow literally made it through the entire thing.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Kroll. Oh gosh, just
awesome. Love the support, man.
And Gumjaw also. Thank you for being voluntold into having to deal with this. But Kroll, you are not forced to be here, so thank you. Yeah. You're awesome, man. Thank you to the individuals also that were with us before that did have to leave early. Thank you to the Enduring, who has lasted this marathon of Crat positions, and thank you to anyone that watches this in the future. We really appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, this again, Admiral and Cash, Countess Faywellen, and Dark Lord Darien. Thank you so very much for attending this class, and hope to see you for part 3. Till then, stay safe, take care of one another, and have yourself a good evening.